All right. I will get us started and thank you all for coming out. We've got a few folks here with us in person this evening, and I believe we've got one person online. I'm sure many more folks will watch this once it's recorded and put on our website. But so this evening, we're going to be going over our priority initiative and budget town hall. This evening, what we would like to do is go through our slides fairly quickly with the intention of allowing more time for conversation. For us, I would say that the notes and comments section of the Priority Initiative survey online are just as valuable, if not more valuable, than your ranking of the surveys. So we would like to do that here in person and encourage conversation, try and have that dialogue and answer the questions and do all of that tonight. Before I get started, I'd like to thank our council. Councilmember Steve Talt is here. And I know that our other council members, I'm sure, are watching at home and abroad as well. But thank you all for allowing us to do this. This is your priorities of us making this a priority to really engage with the community, do this in person. We're doing this in person at the direction of the council, and this really helps the interpersonal connections with our community. That said, you'll see every one of our directors are also here tonight. So I would like to thank all of you for taking the time to come out. We had a lengthy council meeting last night, and this is night 2 of some 14+ hour days. So thank you all for doing that. With that, let's get into it. And what I'm going to do is I will fly through a little bit of budget conversation, talk about the budget, and then I will turn it over to each one of our directors who have priority initiatives to fly through those. And then we'll go into Q&A, and we can stay here to answer the questions. If we're done, we can wrap it up. So one of the things I wanted to highlight, a year ago, we received a couple awards for our budget process and our financial reporting. This was really, really a milestone moment for San Marino, and it speaks to volumes about how much value we put on our financial reporting. You can find our budget documents and our comprehensive financial reports online, and they're available if you want to read them in person. We have them at City Hall. I know every one of us has a copy on our desks that we flip through literally every day. But this is something that we're very proud of because this demonstrates stewardship of your finances that meet very high standards, right? These are the standards that our partners in other cities, that the accounting boards hold us to, the municipal finance officers hold us to. This is really the way that we get to show you how proud we are of being good stewards of your finances. So kudos to our finance staff for achieving this in partnership with all of our other departments. This right here demonstrates our revenues that you've seen, and I will say you've seen several of these slides before. This is available in our budget document. This is available. We review this in various forms every single month, and I think it's kind of flashing behind me. But what you're going to see here, and let me step out of the way a little bit. Maybe that's better. Is that better? What you see here, are you able to make that bigger for the audience by chance? You cannot. Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll point.
I cannot right now.
And we'll have these available online, part of the presentation as well. But what this shows, you can see just generally, I'll highlight a couple things here. These are our total revenues at about $31.5 million is our total revenues here. You'll see here ad valorem property taxes, utility users tax, and public safety tax. Really, these three make up a disproportionate amount of our revenue streams. And why I highlight the public safety parcel tax in red, you'll hear more about this throughout the evening tonight, but this comes up and will be on the ballot this November. It sunsets in June of next year, but as you can see on this slide, it is 9% of our revenues. It is a very large piece of our revenues and a very critical piece of the funding that we use to support services throughout this community. This will show you again in just another format also how we receive revenues. Property taxes making up the vast majority of revenues that we receive. Again, on this top portion, you're going to see what we've done is we've highlighted in red the portion that we receive from the public safety parcel tax. So that little bit up there shows you just how much of our property tax revenues come in specifically from the public safety parcel tax. And without it, that budget, that revenue stream would just be quite a bit lower. And you'll see here, we make very little, as San Marino does, from sales taxes. We have no transient occupancy taxes, hotel taxes, what you would see um, what you would see in, let's say, Pasadena, for example, from the Langham or any one of the hotels on Colorado, automotive dealerships, things like that, that make up very large revenue streams for cities. San Marino doesn't have that. And this is old news to all of you, I'm sure, but it's important to highlight that our tax base, our revenue stream is fairly limited. Property taxes, and that's about it. And here we're going to jump into expenditures. You'll see, let me turn this way. You'll see expenditures here, 48% of our budget is spent on personnel. The absolute most valuable thing we have is our human capital. The folks that you see walking around, your police officers, your firefighters, your public work employees, your community development employees, your library staff. You heard me talk about some of our CSD staff last night at the council meeting. That's personnel, and it's incredibly important for us to make sure that we do everything we can to retain highly trained, highly qualified individuals so that we can provide services to our community. What you'll also see here is we highlight that our capital budget is $15.3 million for this year. This is a really fantastic percentage ratio of what we spend on capital versus our operating budget. This is very impressive, and I'll tell you, as you look at other cities, keep an eye on that, because this shows the council's commitment to putting money back into your community and putting that money right back into your streets, your sidewalks, your sewer systems, you name it. It's very impressive, and this is the direction of the council, and that's where you see that. Here again in our operating budget, our adopted budget, what you're going to see here, the two departments on the left are police department, fire department, and public works, going all the way down to our city council department, which our city council members, if you don't know, are volunteers, fully volunteers, not a dollar. Councilmember Talt is nodding his head over here. Yeah, he does get a bottle of water every now and then. But again, importantly, what this slide tells you, it won't say it here, but what this slide tells you is the importance our community and our city council put on public safety. I've highlighted here again in red the portion of these two budgets that is funded by the public safety parcel tax. An incredible portion of both of our police and fire operations funded by your commitment to public safety. You see that on your streets every single day, being one of the safest cities around, being one of the best response times from our police and fire departments. That doesn't happen by accident. That's by the commitment of this community to continue to fund these operations. And you'll see here Public Works, Parks and Public Works being our third largest department by adopted budget, and community development, and just going down from there. So this slide is a giant slide, and it's not meant to be read. But what it's meant to demonstrate is a few things. As you saw our operating budget in the 30 millions, what we have here is that you can find this table in our budget book. Every year we update this, we start to plan out, and this is our 5-year capital expenditure plan. The city council in this table, this is just a snapshot of a very long table that has all sorts of projects on there. But what this snapshot shows us is our annual ongoing programs, things that we do on a year-over-year basis, things like street tree maintenance, sidewalks, streets, sewer work, alley and parking lot improvements, right? And so what we'd like to highlight here is you're going to see $41 million, $41 million over the next 5 years of capital that we have forecasted for our ongoing capital commitments. And the city council reviews this on an annual basis. We make adjustments to this based on market fluctuations, construction costs changing. This is what we've forecasted out. For example, we are forecasting about $4.25 million worth of street work in the year 27, fiscal year 27, 28. Now, will that cost us $4.25 million that year? Who knows? Maybe more, unlikely less. How many streets we'll be able to do for that amount? But these are things that the city council reviews on an annual basis. But this, I wanted to highlight this next click is what it's going to show you is, again, talking about the commitment from the city council. This number here over the next 5 years, $27.6 million is what the council is forecasting to spend on things related to street safety, sidewalk replacement, street repairs, street striping, parkway tree replacements and not replacements, excuse me, maintenance. This forecast, $27.6 million out of the 41 forecasted. What I'm highlighting here today, and I would do it even if my boss wasn't in the room, is the commitment the council has to public safety on all fronts, traffic safety, street safety, sidewalk safety. So I wanted to highlight this because the mayor has mentioned public safety being one of the priorities this year. It's very important for us to highlight this is where the bulk of your tax dollars are going, right back into your community, right back into your streets, right back into your trees, you name it. It's out there to make sure that it's a safe, livable community and we maintain your property values as high as we can. This slide here will show you that it is a 12-month process, our budget process. We discussed this at the council meeting a few weeks back. We work on this in earnest all year round, but we are really in the thick of it right now with our budget kickoffs. Our staff are working on all the little things, truing up contracts, working through labor negotiations, working through you name it. We go through it all year round to make sure that we have the most up-to-date budget so that we can implement all of our programs to the best of our abilities. And now let's get into the meat of it. So 8 critical success factors. You all know this, especially as residents. This is something that you've been working on longer than I have, and especially the staff that have been here for several years. These are the things that we live by. These are on our walls in our offices. These are on our desks. But this is really important for us to highlight. These are the things that drive our decisions and the things we bring to council. Things like a well-maintained infrastructure, safe communities, engaged and connected residents, beautiful, preserved single-family neighborhoods. These are the things that we really try and achieve every single day. Now, one of the priority initiatives that we're going to talk about here is public safety excellence, and we're talking about things in themes and a couple priority initiatives beneath each one of these themes. So this first theme is public safety excellence. There are a few things on here, and I'm going to turn it over to, as soon as I talk about the public safety parcel tax, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Encontra to talk about body-worn cameras. The public safety parcel tax, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the most important things that this community does every few years. It supports our public safety services, and without them, the council would be making some very difficult decisions. We generate about $3.5 million from your commitment to public safety in this community. That is mission critical money that we use to fund other programs or to offset funding that we use in other programs. So you saw an article in the Tribune this past week talking about our storm response, having public safety, public works staff on call and in town during the torrential downpours. The city council is able to fund that because all of you commit to the tax revenue through the public safety parcel tax to support our police and fire services. So we want to make sure that we educate the public on these types of things so that we can have a successful engagement process throughout the year. And we're going to fly through these and we'll take questions at the end. So just with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Encontra. So clicker there for you.
Thank you very much, sir. As the department looked at the idea of implementing a body-worn camera program, we looked at a lot of information. One of the things I found is a University of Michigan professor, Nicholas Camp, who is known for studying the effects of body-worn cameras and how it impacts the communities that police agencies serve, said at this point, and this is from a 2022 Cal Matters article, is that body-worn cameras are a no-brainer. In reviewing the implementation of a body-worn camera program, the Community-Oriented Policing Services, which is part of the Department of Justice, and the Police Executive Research Forum said accountability and transparency, reducing liability, resolving officer-involved incidents, identifying and correcting internal agency issues are some of the priorities that a body worn camera system or program will provide to the police department and the city, and most importantly, to the community that we serve. In the survey that went out to our community, 3 things came up: transparency, privacy, and training. Transparency. We will make sure that the information on body worn cameras is provided to the community. We're obligated by law to release information to news media and to others. We're also want to make sure if there's any questions and about the officer's actions, and also to highlight the outstanding work that each member of our community sees our police officers do each and every day. Body worn cameras will highlight that. Privacy. There are times when officers respond to a call for service that we have victims of sexual assault. We have victims that are involved in some very confidential incidents. Confidential in the way that we want to protect the privacy of the victim. State law provides that for us. In those incidents, the release of the information may not be provided to the public, also during an active investigation. But whenever we are able, we will make sure that we do release the information. So privacy has to be balanced with transparency. And we'll ensure that within our policy and our guidelines, and as it says here, train the community and train the officers, we will make sure everyone understands that. And in reality, training is more of a opportunity for us to provide information on how we will implement the program, how the system will work, how each one of our officers will be using the system when they meet with a member of the community or engage with a suspect or someone else. But we'll also make sure that the community is familiar and becomes comfortable when they see a San Marino police officer approach them and knowing that they're wearing a camera. My hope is that in a very quick period of time, everyone will be comfortable, will understand that this is just a matter of fact, that this is just the way policing is in the 21st century. Thanks.
Shaw is up next.
Okay, thank you and good evening. For this next initiative, this is for the implementation of traffic safety recommendations. Last night, actually, the citywide traffic circulation study was received and filed along with traffic task force recommendations that was created as part of the Public Safety Commission. Those reports were received and filed by the City Council last night. In conjunction with that, there were 3 intersections that were identified for potential improvements that we will continue reviewing and analyzing. And so we are, and those potential improvements were at San Marino Avenue, Huntington Drive, Los Robles Avenue at Mission Street, and Sierra Madre Boulevard at Robles Avenue. So that's a few of the intersections that we are currently looking at as a result of last night's council meeting. In addition to that, as I just mentioned, the traffic task force that was formed through the police department under Chief Encontro's guidance, led by our previous chair, Al Bogue. They also compiled a number of recommendations for locations throughout the city, separate from the ITERIS citywide traffic circulation study to examine. And so there are a number of things we're going to be looking at as part of improving traffic safety throughout the city. Some other citywide traffic safety improvements that were recommended as part of the circulation study. They were deemed quick fix. I'd really say they're more best practices, standard guidelines, things we should be doing throughout the city, and that were included in the report and that we'll begin implementation of. We're updating traffic signal timings to include all red phase, installation of new Caltrans reflective backplates on our traffic signal heads, implementation of a retroreflective program for all of our regulatory signs as a requirement of the MUTCD. So there are a number of improvements that we are going to be moving forward with now. Noted here, the neighborhood traffic calming funding as part of this current fiscal year's budget was $75,000. That's the budget that we will be utilizing to begin the implementation of the citywide traffic safety improvements I just mentioned. In addition to that, as part of this fiscal year's budget, there was the citywide traffic improvements funding of $150,000. And that initiative is primarily focused on reviewing our school zones. So for Carver, Valentine, Huntington, San Marino High School, we're currently in the process right now, actually, and expecting a final report in the coming weeks. Full school zone evaluation for all signing, striping, the message boards. Those improvements will be rolling out, and that's going to be funded through that budget, along with speed radar signs on Huntington and potentially some other arterials collectors throughout the city, in conjunction with working with the police department on some locations for those. So those are things that we're looking forward that we're going to be doing starting now, but also continuing. But we also expect to roll into our next fiscal year's budget where there may be additional funding requests for CIPs related to those potential intersection improvements and for the completion of some of those other citywide initiatives that won't be fully funded with the budget we have for this year. So that's what we're looking at and looking forward to doing to help continue to improve our traffic safety.
Right now, let's talk about our neighborhoods. I'm going to have Mr. Director, Community Development Director Figueroa come up and speak to actually all three of these items. So the floor is yours.
Thank you and good evening, and thank you for being here. Your presence is appreciated both here and online. So I was speaking regarding the general plan update. The general plan update was put at a stall because of staffing at the time. We have essentially already started that with the housing element update, and we'll continue the safety element efforts that were previously conducted by previous staff. The general plan steering committee had applications open at the start of my tenure here with the city because of other priorities that we had to focus on. We had to put a stop to that, but we're going to reopen the application process. All those who have already applied don't need to apply. Their applications will be valid. We will engage in the community engagement in the summer with the help of our community engagement manager, Ms. Nicole Tivett. We'll be updating our website and we'll be mailing a resident mailer as well. In regards to the housing element, City Council authorized a contract for our housing consultant. It was a long search. Unfortunately, we were caught in the middle of many cities updating their own housing elements, so it was difficult to attain one. And we were lucky to enter into a contract with a housing consultant that has been successful in certifying a number of housing elements throughout the state. Staff has been in constant contact with HCD staff and to ensure that we don't get in trouble. We're currently finalizing the housing element that aims to preserve our neighborhood community to the extent possible. Community outreach will be conducted. Public hearings inclusive of public hearings. And we aim to submit the housing element inclusive of the implementation by July of this year. So it's a really aggressive schedule, but we are confident that we can undertake that effort. In terms of Stoneman, our housing element has identified Stoneman and the vacant portion of it, that's the grass area in the parking lot, as a housing opportunity, whether that be a senior facility or multifamily. That hopefully will be our main anchor to get our certification of our housing element. We aim to preserve the school site, enhance it, potentially be a senior citizen center, whether it be operated by the city, our community services department, or in a partnership, private and city. Again, we will include that in the housing element, which will be submitted by July 2024. I know it says September, but it should say July. We'll fix that for when it gets uploaded to the website. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Figueroa. Fiscal health, and this really at the heart of our budget tonight. I'll speak to both of these items here. We are looking to do a cost of service study. One of the things that is critically important for cities to do on on a 5-year basis is to conduct a cost of service study. The cost of service study ensures that those folks that are utilizing specific services, be it building permits, encroachment permits, you name it, are paying their fair share of those costs for services so that the neighbor isn't subsidizing a service that is a private benefit to that specific individual. So it's important for us to go through this, to bring on a expert consultant that does this work. They do these things. This is something that has to be done in accordance with several laws to make sure that we are not in violation of different things like Proposition 218, that we do not collect more than what the service costs. So this is a mission critical one to make sure that we protect the integrity of our revenue stream, one of our limited revenue streams. This next item here, earlier this year, our former finance director, Mr. Paul Chung, left us for an outstanding opportunity in the city of El Segundo, a very large city. We were sad to lose him, but are very happy for his growth. In his place, we've brought in Mr. Terry Shea to hold us over for the next few months, a seasoned CPA and expert in public finance. But we need to begin our recruitment for a permanent finance director. This is something, as I've been speaking with other public sector professionals, finding a finance director is a very difficult task. It is a specialized role to recruit a government executive level position at his level or at this level. And so we are looking to bring on or have brought on a recruitment firm to help our HR director carry out this recruitment. And we're hopeful to find someone that is a right fit for San Marino. The finance director is a critical role in our organization, and we want that person to not only know finance, but we want them to know what it means to be a finance director in San Marino, how much we value our finances, right? That no pun intended, but how important it is for us to be mindful of how we spend our money, how we look at our books, everything else. So this is something mission critical. We want our reach to be far and wide, make sure that we leave no stone unturned in finding this really mission critical position. With that, I'm going to turn it over. This is going to go back to Mr. Figueroa for one of these, and then Ms. Shaw will wrap up the last two. And these 3 items, this is really focusing on us being able to deliver better services to all of you as a community. We're looking for ways that we can save the community money and deliver better services and better interactions for residents who are obtaining permits, who are residents who are visiting our offices, who are calling Public Works for an emergency, who are seeing our cars drive around, our police and fire trucks. So this is really to help us find some operational efficiencies throughout the organization. Director Figueroa.
Thank you. The point of this exercise is really to assess what we currently have in our permits tracking system. It's not a good one. We spend a lot of time doing more research and interfacing with our residents. And what we try to do is try to improve efficiency, not only within our organization, but also with our interface with the residents. So we want to make an assessment of our current permitting system in order to provide methods of transparency, meaning we can improve permit tracking, provide real-time information, which we could also upload to our city website, and identify maps that will help identify projects. And again, all this is in hopes that we can streamline access to public record requests, improve efficiency within departments, and improve record maintenance. And again, reduce staff research time so that we have more time to interface with our residents. We spend a lot of time researching, and we hope that we can spend more time speaking directly with our residents to improve our dialogue. And who's next? Oh, I thought that was it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Amber's next. Trick. Sorry. Amber's got the last two.
Thank you. So following the theme of enhancing our service delivery, one of the things that I would say has stood out a lot to me in the year that a little over a year that I've been with the city is a lack of an inventory or database or anything that would really tell me I can't manage something I don't know that I have. I can't defend our city in any liability cases without having records that adequately reflect that I've met regulatory requirements or that our staff was there maintaining something when they were, and I know they were, but I don't have the documentation to support that. So this program that I'm recommending is for an asset management program or software that would basically establish that. We would have a complete inventory. So in order to implement this and for it to truly be effective, one of the components of that is obviously establishing a complete inventory of all of our city assets. That's our striping, our signing, street lights, you name it, anything we own that's in our public right of way that we are responsible for maintaining to keep our assets in the condition they belong in, and safe for everyone that's around them. So that's one thing. And then a second component that the asset software provides is being able to record the maintenance records every time we go out there and touch it, replace it, inspect it, whatever it is, filling a pothole, replacing a sign because it failed retroreflectivity testing, anything of the sort. We would be able to have clear established records so we could always provide that proof if we're ever required to. It would improve our staff efficiencies and effectiveness because we would be able to see a clear picture of the assets we have and what is out there that needs to be maintained and what the status is, and be able to deploy the resources we need when we need them and to where, which obviously would also translate into departmental productivity and increase. And as I spoke to the liability portion of it, obviously helps with our risk identification and mitigation by being able to have those records if and when we're ever required to provide them to document we've done our job as a city to keep everything in the order that it was supposed to be in, and that we're aware of what's out there and planning and making sure that we're keeping those assets up to date. Obviously, improving our regulatory compliance. I talked about retroreflectivity testing. That's a big one with signage. We are required to do that. I mentioned it in my previous talk about traffic just a few minutes ago. And so that's one of those items, being able to prove that we've done that testing. And then obviously, and then would also just decrease our research time. Right now, and I also would want to mention that this would not replace our GoGov app that hopefully many of our residents are already aware of and are using. That is still an important resource to us. It provides a direct communication from our residents to city staff, but it's not organized or in a way that you can actually search it or document easily without doing a lot of work to find what you need in there, and if it's in there. And that's only if it's something that's reported and not just something that our staff does as part of their daily jobs. If they see something, they handle it and it's not recorded. So there's that component. And overall, because we would see this as being able to better manage our resources, it would increase our resident satisfaction and service delivery and maintaining those assets. That one. And then the last item, also as part of enhancing our service delivery, is the recommendation for a fleet modernization through an enterprise leasing model. First thing I want to start with is by saying that there are many connotations of what a leasing program for vehicles could be or would be. I know most of us would think if you walk into a dealership and rent a car, and that doesn't always have the best connotation to what those experiences are like. This is not like that at all. It's a municipal leasing program. There's no mileage restrictions associated with it. There's no abnormal wear or tear associated with these programs. There's no early termination fees. The city would have all rights of ownership if we want to keep it for however long we want to keep that vehicle for. We can install any aftermarket equipment, particularly as it relates to our public safety vehicles aftermarket. So there's really no restrictions. Enterprise handles the selling of the vehicles. They often are able to recoup far more than our current method of just sending vehicles to auction when we do surplus them. So that's part of the leasing program. The other benefit of this, and really what's the objectives or what's driving this, is that it would help us establish a proactive fleet replacement plan. It would provide a lower sustainable fleet cost that is predictable year over year. If we go back through the budget, you'll see that there's often lumpy purchases. There's a significant capital outlay to replace vehicles. You can only do so many at a time because it is so expensive. Going to this model would allow us to really modernize our whole fleet over a much faster period of time. So it would minimize those large capital outlays and allow us to achieve that. In addition to that, we would be reducing our vehicle fuel. We expect over the course of it, over the course of like a 10-year program of this, it would reduce by at least 20%. Maintenance costs are significant, especially dealing with vehicles out of service because of the age of the fleet. Not only does it impact our operations, but the costs associated with that. We expect that there would be a 35% reduction in maintenance costs just in the first year and 75% within the first 78% within the first 5 years of the program. Reduction in just our maintenance costs alone, not to mention obviously they're more efficient, and that's what drives our fuel maintenance savings. Increase safety for our employees. If you look at the makeup of our fleet, 27 of our vehicles, about 3/4 of the vehicles that would be eligible to participate as part of this program predate backup cameras, things that we take for granted. About 22% predate electronic stability control standardization, which I'm not a car person, but is touted as one of the biggest safety improvements since the seatbelt. And then we even have a few in our fleet that predate anti-lock brakes. So there's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to safety, not only for our staff, but for the other drivers on the road, our community, our residents. If we're driving in safer vehicles, it improves safety overall. So that concludes my presentation on that item.
I think next week on Friday's council meeting, you'll see us surplusing a 1986 truck, right? It's one of our Chevy trucks from 1986. Yeah, we've got a few trucks that are a little depreciated. So what we're gonna do now is we'll take questions here in person from the room. We'll start off with Director Morris, and then we have several questions online. So we'll go online here in a second, but we'll start here in the room and then we'll go. But again, as I mentioned, like this, we'll do this interactively. Please let us know what you want to talk about these and we'll go from there.
On the last topic there, is AQMD put restrictions on continuing fossil fuel file? And is that having an impact on your fleet requirements?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Yes, there are several fleet questions, and I'll try and answer some of these things, and if I can't, I'm going to raise the phone a friend. But there's several things that we're going through with emissions and the clean fleet rules at the state level. What a fleet leasing model would do is allow us more flexibility to lease vehicles, send them back, to make sure that we can trial an electric vehicle, make sure we have the infrastructure for that electric vehicle, but not be beholden to spending $70,000 on a Ford F-150 Lightning only to find out that it doesn't meet our needs, right? So we can go through, lease that electric vehicle, put it in our fleet, make sure it works for one, and if it does, then we can continue to add more, but we can trial it through a leasing model. But if we own cars the way that we do now, one by one, we've got to buy, sell, lumpy revenue, but that's a great question. And we're also looking to see what other avenues there are to help us offset funding from elsewhere, AQMD money, money from other partners such as Edison, different things that we can do to make sure that we don't tie ourselves to grant restrictions, but still try and capitalize on other people's money. Thank you. Mr. Lips.
The question in reference to, I believe it was the second slide. You gave that the police and fire protection, great. There was information missing in that, to me, in my opinion, is when was it voted on last, what year? And what was the percentage of accepting people that voted for it?
Great question. It was last voted on in 2019, and 71% of voters passed the measure. It needs 2/3 to pass. So it needed 66.6% to pass, and we garnered 71% of the vote in support. If you ask me, that is too close for comfort, especially for something that we rely so heavily on. And I would, without having been here 4 years ago, I would say that my hope and my goal and my mission is to make sure that our community is even more educated on how important those dollars are to providing these services.
Question in reference to the body cams. I think they're a great resource for the city and for the police department. Is there a way that you could take one of those and put it on one of those radar stations along the road and take photos of cars that are going too fast?
A speed camera?
and
I see the
actually,
chief.
you
This
know,
chief is nodding his head. I'm sure he's got better technology that he can give you ideas about. He's
Sorry.
smiling. Did we set this up?
Thank you very much for the question. The state of California approved 4 different cities, and Los Angeles being the closest one, that will be testing speed cameras. And at the conclusion of their pilot program, if it's successful and does see a decrease in speed of vehicles because of these citations, if you remember red light citation cameras,
uh-huh.
those were defeated through a lot of different techniques of really great attorneys and also some poor planning on the part of the manufacturers. But with the speed cameras, if it's accepted, then we will make sure that we're in line to be able to use that technology, or at least to do a pilot program with that technology. The cameras that we currently have, the flock cameras, talking to their engineers, they believe they may be able to have an add-on component to our existing cameras. And we have several along Huntington Drive and some other areas. So the potential is there, and we're looking at it as it moves forward.
Right, excellent. Last question for you, Chief, and that is I noticed you put these radar units along separate roads. But quite often I notice that there really isn't a sign of what telling the speed limit is that would be permanently left there when the radar trailer is hauled away. In reference to, everybody would know that it's 30 miles an hour. And that's somewhat missing. Should that be called in by a resident, or should city maintenance be doing it? Or where's the line in reference to getting actual signs saying X number of speed per minute?
Well, there's 2 things. One, we have signs posted along roadways. It's based upon state and federal regulations. And the radar camera speed radar signs, thank you. They do have the speed limit on them. However, Director Shaw, in her current priority initiative, is looking at additional signage and additional radar feedback signs. So that will play directly into the question that you're asking.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Chief.
All right. Seeing no other hands in the room, I'm going to go online. We have several questions online, so I'm going to work my way through them. Let's go here. Miss Viswanathan, thank you very much. You've got a couple here. What I'm going to start with is, and I will encourage folks, as you have, if we would love your opinion and your feedback on the priority initiatives that were presented by staff this evening. So I will start to answer some of these questions that you've provided here that are on different topics. But if anyone else has comments or things on the priority initiatives, we'd love to get that feedback as well. Ms. Viswanathan asks about lighting at the courtyard here at the library and at the community center. Her question's about it being dark in the courtyard. And that's something that we can certainly take a look at, is additional lighting here, and see what is necessary and how we can improve that. There's a second question about the lighting, and we can certainly continue to look at that. The third question here relates to the courtyard at the library and discussing the decomposed granite that is here just outside of these doors. Her request is that a stone or brick flooring would be preferred. That's something that we can take a look at. I'm not sure that we were looking at replacing that in our current plans, but that's something that we can certainly consider at the city council's direction. Let's see here. Sue, your next question is about, again, about the library and about the furniture and carpeting in the library. This is something that we're certainly looking at as far as a longer term maintenance plan for the library. We will be discussing this in the joint meeting with the library and the city council next Friday morning at 8:30, which I know you'll be a part of. So we're excited to have that conversation. The library is an incredible facility, one of the most used facility we have in this community. It gets some high volume traffic, and rightly so. So we've got to work to put some funding aside to make sure that we maintain it and help it age gracefully and not neglect it. So I definitely hear you on that one. So your next question is about oversized vehicles. We have actually posted just outside. If I lean my head down, I can see the sign from here about a month ago now. It's probably about a month, give or take. New signage was put up here at this facility, and we have not had an issue with the oversized vehicle parking here at the library or community center since. I haven't seen it. I haven't received reports since. So I think we have put a pin in that issue for now, but we're going to continue to work on that. More signage is going to be going up around the community at city-owned lots relating to ordinances that are currently in place to help the police department enforce our rules. Again, and the next question from Sue is about oversized vehicle signage. And you may have, Ms. Viswanathan, you may have missed it, but the signage is up, and we did actually post something on our website about the new rule, not the new rules, but the new signage reiterating our old rules on our website as well. Next question from Sue is about Stoneman. The question or the recommendation is about having a town hall concerning plans for Stoneman. Absolutely. Make no mistake, we're going to have a very robust engagement process surrounding Stoneman once that time comes. Once the city council has the input from staff and the consultants on the housing element, and once a decision is before the city council on how to move for that and where to go, we'll definitely be having a robust engagement process on garnering community feedback, community input. This is something that I am acutely aware of the history in this community around Stoneman, as are all of our directors, new and old. We are committed to making sure that this is a partnership with the community to make sure that we move this forward in whatever shape and form it takes place with all of you, and making sure that we do our jobs to educate the community on the pressures that we are under, the rules that we are bound by the state, and the box that they have put us in. So we will continue to work that in partnership with you and make sure that we educate the community on the rules that we have to follow. John Dustin, thank you for your question. He asks about the computer inside City Hall that folks can access building projects and records. The question is, are there plans to make that function available online? That is a great question and something that we've kicked around as staff. Many cities have that functionality. I believe it's an incredible tool to help streamline services for residents, for folks that are buying homes in town, to help obtain building permit information about their properties. That's something that Director Figueroa mentioned, that if the council is interested and if the community is supportive of the priority initiative, we would look to try and implement something. But these are large software programs. They're expensive software programs, and they take quite some time to implement. But hopefully, these types of programs help yield dividends with the community's interaction with City Hall. And the final question or comment I have is from Ms. Viswanathan concerning the asset management program, and says that it's an excellent idea and much needed. This ensures our assets are properly maintained and not left to deteriorate. It keeps us all accountable. Thank you for that. Thank you to those that have been watching. I know we haven't had a giant turnout online, but I appreciate the four of you that did participate. With that, I have no further questions online. I'm not seeing any arms raised, hands raised in the room. With that, I think I'm going to give it a second here to make sure no one else is typing anything, but I want to thank all of you for coming out. Thank all of you for the questions, and know that we have some next steps here. So the community survey is online. We have had some great great turnout already. We've got dozens of responses. I encourage all of you, please tell your neighbors, please engage us as staff. If you have questions about any of the initiatives that we talked about tonight, be it the asset management plan, be it the fleet model, be it the chief's body worn camera proposal, you name it, ask us. We want to interact with all of you. We want to communicate and we want to be participants with all of you. And as I said at the beginning, the comments section of the survey is just as important, if not more so to us than the ranking. So please put in some notes there. Tell us what you're seeing, and we'll do our best to make sure that we're telling the story of what we're dealing with at City Hall, so that you have the information that you need. This last slide here, you can do it for me, please. Of course. Some important dates to remember. This will be before the City Council on March 13th, the priority initiatives, which will be the real next main step in our budget process. I'm going to back up one step. Next Friday, we will be presenting our mid-year budget to the City Council. We will be presenting all of what we have seen up through the first 6 months of the year, how things are tracking. Teaser, they're tracking quite well, and that is in part due to all of our staff and the way that they are spending money, and I should say saving money, the way that revenues are coming in, the way that the economy is bouncing back from what could have been a difficult exit out of COVID. But that is next Friday. You'll see a great presentation from our interim finance director, Shay, and our accounting controller, Mr. Siegfried. Following that, we'll have some budget study sessions on March 29th, April 26th, and hopefully and optimistically on May 31st, our budget will be before the City Council for final adoption. With that, we're going to conclude. I don't see any other questions popping up. We will conclude this evening, and thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate your participation. We'll hopefully see you around town.